The day started like any other. Families heading off to work, children trudging to school, and neighbors greeting one another with polite nods. No one in the area could have anticipated the brutality that would soon erupt behind closed doors. A young mother named Mary Jane Collins, full of hope for a better future, would cross paths with a man whose secret purpose was vengeance. Before long, a stunning act of violence would transform an ordinary morning into an unforgettable tragedy. In a single horrifying moment, the fragile threads holding her world together snapped, leaving questions that would resonate throughout the community. Yet what makes this story so chilling is how carefully the perpetrator orchestrated every step. By all appearances, he was a doting boyfriend and caring father figure, willing to help with errands and show affection to Mary Jane's young children. Beneath that calm surface, however, existed a plan fueled by revenge for a past killing that in his mind demanded payback. The murder that began this tragic cycle involved Mary Jane's incarcerated ex-partner, an individual who unknowingly set off a chain reaction leading to the cruel finale no one saw coming. But how could someone enter a person's life under the guise of love and protection, only to strike with such calculated force? The seeds of betrayal, heartbreak, and hidden motives were planted weeks before the final act. Mary Jane, eager for stability and companionship, invited this stranger into her home and heart without realizing that she was merely a pawn in his deadly scheme. This shocking prelude not only highlights the shocking outcome, but foreshadows a narrative far deeper than a simple crime of passion. Welcome to True Crime Acts, where we look into the hidden truths behind some of the most chilling real-life events. Our mission is to uncover the stories that shock, educate, and spark change, reminding us that behind every headline is a victim, a family, and a ripple effect felt by an entire community. If you find this journey as important as we do, don't forget to like, subscribe, and click the notification bell to ensure you never miss another gripping exploration into the depths of human behavior. Mary Jane Collins was a single mother in her early 20s, determined to shield her two boys from the hardships she had endured. Friends described her as hardworking, kind, and endlessly devoted to her children. Despite the challenges of raising two kids on her own, she embraced every opportunity to make their lives feel secure. From weekend trips to the local park to simple movie nights at home, Mary Jane's priority was always the well-being of her sons. On the other side of the equation stood Michael King, the father of one of Mary Jane's children, who was locked away for a previous killing. They had once been a couple, but their bond had shifted into an attempt at cooperative parenting. Though separated by prison walls, King's presence remained relevant through scheduled video calls with his child. Unbeknownst to him, that same connection would become a dangerous conduit for the new man in Mary Jane's life, a man with personal scores to settle. While King paid for his prior wrongdoing, the far-reaching echoes of his crime would soon ravage another innocent life. The third figure in this tragic story is DeWyand Hurst, the seemingly considerate boyfriend who swooped into Mary Jane's life with gentle words and helpful gestures. He was a man who, at first glance, seemed to be a perfect partner, supportive, attentive, and ever ready to assist with childcare. Yet this altruistic facade masked a colder purpose. Hurst's half-brother had been killed in that same fateful event that sent Michael King to prison, and ever since, Hurst had nursed a burning desire to strike back at the man he blamed. The most direct way to wound King, he reasoned, was through Mary Jane. These three individuals, Mary Jane, Michael King, and DeWyand Hurst, became locked in a triangular clash of past misdeeds, longing for peace, and thirst for retaliation. In Mary Jane's mind, King was simply doing his time, and she hoped to maintain a semblance of normalcy for their child. In King's mind, contact with Mary Jane was a chance to stay connected to the life he once had. Yet for Hurst, that same link spelled opportunity. If he could earn Mary Jane's affection and worm his way into her home, he could ultimately enact the vengeance he had plotted for so long. Each of these individuals stepped onto a path shaped by choices, both personal and inherited from prior conflicts. Mary Jane's desire for a partner to share her burdens met Hurst's hidden plan for retribution, while King's imprisonment formed the backdrop that spurred Hurst to act. As these destinies converged, the once simple question of trust became lethal. How does a mother separate genuine care from a cunning predator who plans to exploit her every vulnerability? This question underscores the heartbreak that is about to unfold in ways neither Mary Jane nor her children could have anticipated. The moment Mary Jane Collins first encountered Dwayne Hurst could have been mistaken for a sweet chance meeting. She was purchasing snacks for her boys, and he offered a friendly remark about his own childhood favorites. To a stressed single mother balancing a job and 2 kids, a kind stranger with a playful sense of humor may have felt like a refreshing break. From that instant on, a relationship began to form, one that seemed to satisfy her longing for stability and companionship. What Mary Jane didn't realize was that Hurst had spent weeks covertly observing her daily habits. He picked that convenience store intentionally, waiting for just the right time to charm his way into her good graces. Initially, his reasons for approaching her were unknown to anyone but himself. That first conversation turned into a series of encounters that grew less coincidental each time. Soon, Mary Jane found Hurst appearing at places she frequented, from the local laundromat to the school where her children were enrolled, always offering to help with errands or simply share a light-hearted conversation. As Hurst integrated into Mary Jane's life, he skillfully molded himself into the ideal partner. He cooked for the family, spent time reading bedtime stories, and even encouraged her to keep in touch with her child's father. On social media, he would post friendly selfies with the kids, as if performing the role of a doting stepfather. To Mary Jane, it felt like the answer to her prayers. Someone who not only accepted her busy lifestyle, but also promised to help shoulder the load. She hoped that at last, her children could see what a genuine family dynamic looked like. Friends and relatives, however, noted subtle changes. Mary Jane, once outgoing, began to withdraw socially. She canceled get-togethers, citing various reasons. Sometimes people would comment on a stray bruise, but she dismissed it as a clumsy accident. Others thought she seemed overly cautious, glancing over her shoulder whenever she and Hurst were at gatherings. Despite these signs, the outside world saw a blossoming relationship between a young mother yearning for stability and a devoted boyfriend who seemed to care deeply for her children. In truth, Mary Jane found herself balancing the need to protect her children's well-being with growing anxieties she couldn't fully explain. Was she betraying her incarcerated baby daddy by allowing another man into her life? Or was she simply trying to move forward for the sake of her kids? These internal struggles only grew stronger as the weeks passed, and Hurst's presence became more deeply woven into her daily routine. Behind every moment of warmth lay an unseen scheme on his part, one that would soon break through the facade and rip apart everything Mary Jane had fought so hard to maintain. In the early stages of her relationship with Dwayne Hurst, Mary Jane tried to ignore anything that might suggest she was slipping into dangerous territory. Yet subtle cracks began to show. Friends noticed that her usually sunny demeanor dimmed over time. Her once frequent social media posts dwindled, replaced with the occasional cheerful update featuring photos of the children. Whenever someone asked about her new boyfriend, she'd smile and offer a reassuring remark that sounded oddly rehearsed. Despite her attempts to maintain a peaceful front, Mary Jane's private communications hinted at something sinister. One friend received a text from Mary Jane detailing bruises that she claimed came from minor mishaps around the house. Another confidant noticed that Mary Jane canceled regular meetups, often accompanied by vague reasons like the kids aren't feeling well. These were red flags, but each friend assumed Mary Jane was just busy or stressed, never suspecting the extent of her hidden anguish. The environment at Mary Jane's apartment also shifted. Previously, her kids loved inviting friends over to watch movies or play board games. Now they rarely had visitors. When relatives dropped by unannounced, Hurst hovered in the background, polite yet slightly cold. He seemed to track every word of conversation, steering Mary Jane away from certain topics or interrupting when questions became too pointed. On more than one occasion, neighbors reported seeing Mary Jane hurry to her car with puffy eyes, as if she'd been crying, only to wave them off and speed away. One particularly concerning sign occurred when Mary Jane's grandmother noticed what appeared to be a bite mark on her cheek. Mary Jane shrugged it off as just messing around, claiming Hearst liked to tease in playful ways. It was a statement that didn't quite match the unease in her eyes. Over text, she hinted to another friend that Hearst had a temper, especially whenever her baby daddy's name came up. She described tense moments during phone calls with King, times when Hearst would pace around the room, eyes filled with a hostility he tried to mask. Looking back, it's clear that these weren't random incidents. They were stepping stones leading Mary Jane down a dangerous path. She was trapped in a cycle of reassurance and denial, perhaps hoping her willingness to accommodate Hearst's emotional swings would preserve what she thought was a genuine family environment. These early warning signs, though subtle, foretold a brutal reality. At the time, however, Mary Jane had no idea that the tension around her was not just an ordinary relationship issue, but the product of a hidden scheme designed to end with devastation. As the weeks passed, a more ominous truth slipped closer to the surface. Dwayne Hearst's role in Mary Jane's life was no coincidence. Unbeknownst to her, he was the half-brother of the man Michael King had killed years ago. This shocking link, soon uncovered by law enforcement, placed Mary Jane at the center of a retaliation plot she never saw coming. While she saw Hearst as a supportive partner, his real aim was revenge directed squarely at Michael King, the father of her child. Hearst meticulously researched Mary Jane before making his first move. He knew her schedule, her favorite shops, and even the times she logged on to social media. What looked like an accidental meeting at a convenience store was part of a carefully orchestrated plan. The final goal was to exact emotional destruction on King by exploiting the closest person tied to him. Every friendly gesture was a layer of deception, each one strengthening Mary Jane's trust, so she wouldn't suspect his darker motivations. The cruel irony was that Mary Jane, even as she balanced contact with King for her child's sake, tried to remain respectful. She never intended to betray her baby daddy. She believed she was doing the right thing by maintaining a cordial environment. Hearst, on the other hand, used this cordiality as an opening to push deeper into her daily life. He encouraged the video calls between Mary Jane's child and King, fully aware that each session fanned the flames of his own hidden anger. When fragments of his actual identity came to light, the reality was devastating. Friends and relatives realized that some of Hearst's mannerisms aligned with stories they'd heard about the deceased half-brother, including specific tattoos and family anecdotes. Still, Mary Jane clung to the hope that these were coincidences or minor misunderstandings. She had a small circle of loved ones who tried to warn her, but the depth of Hearst's revenge scheme wasn't fully clear until it was too late. By the time she caught sight of those connecting threads, she was already in peril. This hidden truth laid the groundwork for the final showdown. The knowledge that Hearst was deeply entwined with the man who had once committed homicide for his own reasons meant the stakes were far higher than anyone outside realized. It transformed a seemingly normal relationship into a countdown for disaster. Mary Jane, trapped between an imprisoned ex and a new boyfriend who had lied his way into her life, only began to sense the lethal consequences when the final pieces slotted into place. Unfortunately, that realization arrived mere moments before all hope of escape was ripped away. October 4th started as a typical day at the Teakwood apartment complex, the hum of traffic mixing with the routine sounds of neighbors heading off to work. Inside Mary Jane Collins's unit, however, tension simmered beneath the surface. She had picked up her children early from school, a decision that unsettled bystanders who couldn't fathom why she would disrupt their usual schedule. Phones buzzed with unanswered messages. Friends who tried to reach Mary Jane sensed unease in her terse replies. Soon after, Dwayne Hearst arrived, carrying what looked like breakfast and a forced smile. Their interactions seemed off. The typical warmth was gone, replaced by stilted conversation. Neighbors on the same floor reported hearing raised voices behind Mary Jane's door, followed by ominous silence. At approximately 11:15 a.m., a video call connected to Michael King's prison line. King, expecting a normal chat with his child, never anticipated the horror about to unfold. It was during that video call that Hearst finally tore away the last shreds of his disguise. Standing behind Mary Jane's son in view of the camera, he sneered at King, referencing the killing that had sent King to prison. Mary Jane's frantic voice could be heard pleading in the background, her protective instincts overriding her fear as she tried to shield her child. The line cut out abruptly, but not before King and anyone else who watched later heard the child's terrified cry, Mary Jane's shriek, and the unmistakable rage in Hurst's tone. Neighbors described what followed as sickening. They heard a single chilling outburst, possibly Mary Jane's final scream, before everything went eerily quiet. When emergency services arrived, they found signs of a violent struggle, an overturned table, shattered frames, and remnants of a desperate fight. Mary Jane's phone lay smashed on the floor, its final call never completed. Police discovered her children cowering in a bedroom closet, the older one trembling, yet trying to calm his younger sibling by whispering reassuring words. For Mary Jane, the promise of a supportive partner had twisted into the most terrifying betrayal imaginable. She had tried to manage a safe environment for her sons, juggling the complexities of a father in prison and a new boyfriend whose motives she never fully grasped. In that last confrontation, Hurst's plan came to a brutal fruition, blurring the lines between personal vengeance and sadistic violence. The fatal confrontation left behind haunted children, traumatized neighbors, and an entire community asking how a cold-blooded plan could be executed with such precision in a place they considered home. Once the police secured the scene, the grim reality became clear. Mary Jane Collins was gone, the victim of blunt force and a lethal stab wound. Despite earlier neighbor reports of possible gunshots, investigators established that the injuries told a different story, one of close-range aggression. Her two children, both under 10, were found huddled together in a closet, stunned and silent. Outside, stunned residents gathered in hushed disbelief as crime scene tape went up. While medics and officers worked inside, Mary Jane's extended family arrived, frantic for answers. The children were handed into the care of their grandmother, who embraced them with tears streaming down her cheeks. Word of the killing spread rapidly through local news channels, leaving the entire community shaken. In an area where serious crime was rare, a murder carried out in such a personal manner was unimaginable. The subsequent police investigation uncovered a haunting level of premeditation. Traces of Hurst's presence were found on nearly every surface, from Mary Jane's personal notebook, where she documented troubling incidents, to the security camera footage that showed him sneaking away calmly through the rear exit. Authorities pieced together the layers of deception: Hurst's months-long pursuit of Mary Jane, the suspicious timing of his visits, and his intentional presence during her video calls with Michael King. Everything pointed to a methodical scheme designed to cause maximum suffering, not only to Mary Jane, but also to King. In the wake of the killing, local support networks sprang into action. Counselors volunteered their services to Mary Jane's children, and neighbors began organizing candlelight vigils to honor her memory. Social media filled with tributes to Mary Jane, a mother trying to do her best in challenging circumstances. At the same time, discussions erupted about how a man with such a vengeful agenda could pass as a loving boyfriend. Some blamed the system for not flagging Hurst's ties to a known homicide. Others cited the need for more robust community awareness when it came to spotting controlling behaviors. For Mary Jane's sons, the aftermath was a world turned upside down. Relatives described them as experiencing nightmares and a constant dread of unfamiliar faces. One child refused to enter the living room where the assault happened. The other had panic attacks whenever someone unexpectedly knocked on the door. The emotional damage Hurst inflicted extended well beyond the single act of murder. It robbed two young children of their mother's protective presence, leaving them to grapple with an awful truth. The person they had grown to trust was the very one who shattered their family. When DeWyan Hurst was finally captured after a 3-week manhunt, he faced a battery of charges: first-degree murder, aggravated assault, and multiple counts of child endangerment. Investigators found him in a rundown motel, living under a false name with a stash of cash and forged identification. Though he offered little resistance during the arrest, his eyes allegedly glimmered with satisfaction, as if he believed he had already accomplished his primary objective: destroying Michael King's peace of mind. During pretrial hearings, prosecutors outlined how Hurst had systematically entered Mary Jane's life to exact revenge for his half-brother's death. They presented reams of digital evidence, text messages revealing Hearst's manipulative tactics, surveillance images of him tailing Mary Jane before they met, and the most damning piece of all, the prison video call capturing his threat. The defense sought to mitigate his actions by pointing to his emotional distress and familial anguish. Yet the cold-blooded nature of Mary Jane's murder made any plea for leniency seem hollow. Meanwhile, Michael King, still serving his sentence for the prior killing, grappled with the devastating realization that his past crime had led to a new tragedy. From his cell, he learned that his child had nearly been harmed during Hearst's final act of brutality. Though King had accepted responsibility for his earlier wrongdoing, he never imagined the ripple effect would reach Mary Jane and their child in such a horrifying way. Legal analysts suggested that King's emotional turmoil could become a factor if the case advanced to any form of civil suit, given that Hearst's motivation stemmed from the earlier homicide. The local community watched every new development with a mixture of sorrow and anger. Domestic violence advocates used Mary Jane's case as a rallying point to educate the public about hidden abuse and the threat of revenge-driven attacks. Some argued that more rigorous screenings or background checks on individuals who have ties to violent offenders might prevent similar outcomes. Others insisted that while improvements in protective measures are crucial, individuals like Hearst, driven by intense rage, often excel at hiding their intentions until it's too late. Justice, in this context, may offer accountability but rarely complete healing. Mary Jane's children would have to build their lives around a profound sense of loss. Hearst's eventual sentencing could provide a measure of closure, but no amount of prison time could undo the sorrow left behind. When the gavel finally comes down, will it truly mark the end of a story fraught with pain, or will it merely punctuate a tragic chapter in the relentless cycle of violent retribution? The aftermath of Mary Jane Collins's murder extends far beyond a simple headline. Her sons carry the memory of a mother who loved them fiercely, only to be taken away by an individual who used deception to enter her life. Friends and relatives, once hopeful for her future, now mourn a woman whose trusting nature was exploited by someone consumed with retaliation. This final chapter highlights how a single act of vengeance can leave wounds that persist across entire families and communities. In the wake of this tragedy, local organizations focused on domestic abuse and relationship violence began pushing for heightened awareness. Authorities also reconsidered protocols around prison communication, recognizing that the very calls meant to preserve parental bonds could be weaponized by outsiders with ulterior motives. Although no one can predict every hidden intention, the hope is that improved monitoring and stronger community vigilance might help avert another heartbreak. Mary Jane's story is a somber reminder that even the most ordinary circumstances, like a friendly conversation at a convenience store, can mask a lurking danger. It underscores the importance of heeding early warning signs, controlling behavior, sudden mood swings, and unexplained bruises. To watch the slow unraveling of her life is to confront the fragility of trust itself. No mother should have to weigh her children's safety against a new relationship, fearing that any misstep could be lethal. Yet in Mary Jane's case, the worst outcome became a stark reality. Still, her memory also serves as a call to unity. If you suspect a friend or family member might be in a harmful situation, speaking up could make all the difference. Offering emotional support, directing them toward counseling, or encouraging them to maintain safe boundaries can be life-saving measures. While it's not always easy to tell when a relationship is founded on manipulation, educating ourselves and staying aware of behavioral shifts can help prevent hidden animosity from escalating into irreversible violence. Mary Jane's heartbreaking experience compels us to question what we, as a community, can do to stand guard against threats cloaked in seeming affection. And so we conclude this account of a mother's misplaced trust and a revenge quest that decimated lives. But the conversation doesn't end here. The pain, the lessons, and the need for collective action remain pressing concerns. Now we turn to you. In a world where someone can masquerade as a caring partner while harboring cruel intentions, how can we best protect those who might be vulnerable? Share your thoughts below. And let us know what steps you believe communities should take to ensure safety for single parents and their children. Your perspective could shed light on a path forward, one where such heartbreak might be prevented for someone else on the brink of a similar nightmare. In the end, lives were torn apart, and a young mother's future was extinguished by a single act of calculated revenge. The echo of her final moments lingers in the stillness of the night, a reminder that trust can be shattered in an instant by someone harboring long-brewing motives. What remains is a community questioning how a cycle of violence, sparked by past conflicts, could erupt so ruthlessly in their midst, and how a devoted mother could lose her life to the sinister intentions of a man she once thought was her safe haven. Even though the case may come to a formal conclusion in a courtroom, the emotional aftermath for Mary Jane's children, family, and those who witnessed the painful events will echo for years to come. Their loss symbolizes the extreme cost of vengeance, an unrelenting force that entangles innocent people in its path. If this story has resonated with you, we encourage you to reflect on any red flags you've seen in relationships around you, and consider reaching out if someone you care about might be at risk. We want to hear your thoughts. How can communities and families better recognize such quiet threats before they explode into irrevocable tragedy? Join the conversation below, and remember that your insights could offer hope or guidance to someone in danger right now. If you found this content meaningful, please like this video, subscribe to our channel, and click the notification bell to stay informed about future stories that shed light on hidden perils and the crucial steps we can all take to prevent them.